Welcome to everybody who has come along this lunchtime for our webinar from Celia on the 7 pillars of, is it painless practice?
Building a thriving practice.
Yes, yes. Now we're so pleased that Celia has agreed to do this for us, and I think most of us have heard of you before, and your reputation goes before you. I was having a wee little look on the Painless Practice website and how best to introduce you, and high energy, fun and strict were the things that stood out for me. So there's lots of expectations here. You've obviously a huge amount of experience building a practice from scratch to a multi-million-pound business and then selling it on. So we would be really silly not to listen to your words of wisdom. And we're so pleased that you chose coaching rather than opening a coffee shop. So yes, I will hand over to you before I witter on any further. So thank you very much, Celia.
Thank you very much for introducing me, Karen, and welcome everybody. I'm really pleased to be here sharing my ideas. I'm going to run through my presentation. If there are any questions, pop them into the chat and I will open it up for Q&A at the end of the session. So thank you very much for coming along, and here we go. Let me just share my presentation and we'll get started. Okay, so today we are here to talk about the 7 pillars to build a thriving practice. So I'm going to be sharing the 7 key elements of building a practice and a thriving one at that. So when we wrote our book 10 years ago, we broadly identified 7 key areas that needed to be focused on in terms of building a thriving practice. And I'll go into each of these areas that we call the 7 pillars. We'll delve a little deeper into the pipeline pillar, which is your mechanism of attracting new and existing patients into your practice. We'll be looking at giving you some frameworks to get your message really crystal clear, looking at the different marketing methods, and then also giving you a clear, simple structure to use to put a marketing plan in place. And then we'll finish off by looking at a few ideas to manage your time, energy, and money. So I'd like to first ask you to really think differently today so that you come up with some different solutions. And here are a few ways that you can do that. First thing is anti-establishment. Think about how other sectors and industries run their businesses, market their businesses, encourage loyalty with both customers and team members, and what can you learn from the other sectors? Sometimes it's good to use frustration to innovate. So what frustrates you, your patients, or your team? This could be something relatively small, like a sticking door, or a bit more involved, like a clunky practice management software system, or poor connectivity. So really sit back and think, what is really frustrating you, your team, or your patients? Thirdly, I want to challenge you and say, what is on your I will never do list? There may be ideas that come up that you firmly put on your I will never do list. Obviously, if they're illegal, keep them there. But what opportunities might you be missing if you're not engaging in some of the ideas? And then lastly, if you haven't been doing this already, try and plan on purpose. So move from being reactive to proactive and really think about what do you want in the long term, and therefore what needs to happen in the short term.
Sorry to interrupt. There's a couple of people saying that they haven't been able to get in.
Oh, have they got
waiting?
Right. And I didn't get a reply from everybody with the updated link, but I'll just check. I don't think there's anybody in the waiting room.
Sorry to interrupt you, Celia.
It's okay. Let me just see. Yeah, there's nobody in the waiting room.
Okay, I will send that to them.
Okay, and then as soon as they ring the Zoom doorbell, I will let them in.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. No problem at all. I'll just get back to there. Okay, so our first area to consider is our personal pillar. And so this is really thinking about what is really personal to you. What does success look like for you? So we encourage our clients to do a 2020 vision, and I will send out this exercise to everybody so that you can actually go through it. It's just where you think about a date in the future and you think about all the different areas in your life, and what do you want to be true in those different areas. So, it might be a particular birthday, it might be a particular time when your children are going to school or finishing school, or date that you want to retire. And you just think about all the different areas of your life and think about what you want to be true. We then really encourage you to think about what are your values? What are the top 3 things that you want to be known for? And how do you want your business to run? So your personal and professional values are really essential to define. Here we go. I'm just letting someone in here now, Karen. So your personal and professional values are really important to define, because they provide a framework for decision making, and they also guide behavior, and they really help you to maintain integrity and align with your goals and your principles. Once you know what you want from life in the bigger picture, you can then design your business and career to deliver that. So it might be that you want to earn a certain amount of money and only work certain days of the week, or you might want to build a team around you, or perhaps you want to build a regional or national group of clinics. Part of your vision might be to sell your business for a certain amount by a certain time in your life. There's no perfect blueprint. It needs to fit with your personal definition of success. So the next thing you need to consider is, what is your exit strategy? So when people ask when they should start planning their exit, my answer is always when you start your practice. The next best time is now. Far too many practitioners get to their late 50s and decide it's time to get out, and their practice is their only pension pot and potentially not as saleable as they need it to be. So I'd highly recommend consulting with an independent financial advisor who will be able to help you work out what you need for your chosen lifestyle on retirement. And the earlier you do this, the better. And I'd even encourage your team members to do that as well. The sooner they can really get their heads around what they want their retirement to look like, the better. Our next area is really understanding what your purpose of your practice is. So it's really, in order to get a thriving practice, it is really important to articulate your purpose. Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why, and he speaks widely on the subject. One of his key messages is that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So people don't buy the physio treatment, they buy the result of the treatment. So it's really important for you to be able to define your why for you, your team, and your patients. It's what inspires us. It helps overcome a tough day. It helps to give the appropriate advice to patients, and it helps to push us out of our comfort zone. I'm going to give you a few examples. So whether you call it your why, your cause, your belief, it's important to get it right and make sure that your team know what it is and are on board with it. Defining your values and purpose is not just a paper exercise. It should really form the building blocks of creating your business processes, developing your patient journey, and choosing and managing your team members. So here are a few examples. Some of them might not be right for your clinic, and that's absolutely okay. You need to define your own purpose. So getting you better and keeping you better. This one has an interesting story behind it. It was first about getting you better. When we looked at the desired patient journey that the owner of this practice wanted for his patients, it was clear that we had a piece missing. So the culture was to get patients better, but then there was this shyness about suggesting that a patient might benefit from future care. So when we added the getting you better, the practitioner suddenly started exploring with a patient what would suit their lifestyle post-episode of care. And this might have just been as simple as recommending certain home exercises, getting them into a regular class, or potentially having more regular appropriate maintenance care. The patient's outcomes improved, the number of great reviews improved, and the clinic went from strength to strength. Can't get that around with my tongue. So 3 words here made all the difference. Here's some other examples as well: improving your daily quality of life of our patients, getting you back to the things you love, helping you make your one body count throughout your lifetime, helping you smash your PBs. So with all these examples, how having a clearly defined purpose really works is when the therapists and the other team members are really passionate about it and they link it to the patient's goals, really taking time to understand what does getting better and keeping better mean to that patient? What does an improved quality of life look like for that patient? And then they need to keep that patient motivated throughout the course of care so that you both are able to achieve the patient's desired outcomes. I can't stress enough how important it is to get this right and to get your team on board. I've seen such transformation in clinics when they get this right and the whole team are behind it. And it's not, as I said, it's not a paper exercise. It's something that needs to be a living thing in the business. Our next pillar is our pipeline pillar. And here we want to really think about, this is about attracting and retaining patients in your practice. So first, it's important to determine who you'd like to attract into your practice. And this could be very general, like a particular age demographic or particular community, or it might be very specific, like sporting individuals. You then need to think about what defines your desired audience, and you might want to do this separately for the different groups that you want to attract. So you might have general characteristics, like you want to attract self-paying people, you're wanting that they engage in multiple services, they recommend you, and then you might just define things like specific injuries that you treat or conditions or particular groups like women in their 50s or rugby players or people suffering from vertigo. So you might get very, very specific, but you might also have some general characteristics that you want to define them. And then once you've been able to define who you want to attract and what their characteristics are, you can then start thinking about what message will they connect with, where will you find them, and how can you reach out to them. And we'll go into a bit more depth on this once we've gone through the 7 pillars. So our next pillar is our patient journey. And this is really at the center of everything that you do. So as a cartoon suggests, if sales go down, you might have to resort to looking after your existing customers. New patients are really expensive to come by, so it's really important to look after your existing ones. And I'm absolutely not suggesting that you provide unnecessary treatments. I think there's more of a danger of under-treating a patient than over-treating, because so many therapists are fearful of coming across as over-treating. And this is a whole new a whole topic for another day. The patient journey consists of both clinical and non-clinical. So from seeing your marketing material, having the first phone conversation or booking online, arriving at the building, having the treatment, having contact after that, each and every step forms a perception in the patient's mind. So it's really important to make sure that every step aligns with your professional values and meets your service expectations. Each step for the patient is a moment of truth where your customer care becomes really, really apparent, and they make a decision whether they'll keep coming to you, whether they'll cancel the next appointment, whether they'll recommend you or complain about you. So we need to really think about what processes and procedures and pathways do you need in place, and what standards will you have, and what wow factors might you aspire to. We also want to think about what steps you'll have in place to encourage patients to return for their recommended course of care and for when they have a future need as well. We also want to be making sure that we are encouraging our existing patients to refer others to us. So this could be simply, this could be as simple as outright asking for those referrals, or it might be a more subtle thank you for all the referrals sign that's visible, that prompts referrals, or you maybe have a referral scheme in place. If outright asking is on your I will never do list, hereby challenge you to remove it. A very, very simple way of doing this is when a patient says, oh gosh, I feel so much better, instead of just saying, I'm so pleased to hear that, say, I'm so pleased to hear that, and if you know anyone else that would benefit like you have, please send them our way. It's also important to think about how you'll gather data to build evidence and demonstrate patient outcomes, and make sure that you're regularly asking for feedback from patients about their non-clinical experience. You could also do client surveys, ask for testimonials, Google or Trustpilot reviews. You might even think about selecting some of your patients to have personal calls with them to get their personal feedback. Our next area that we want to look at is our people pillar. So here we need to really think about who do we need in our practice to achieve our vision. In an ideal world, we would sit down with a blank piece of paper, think about how we would like our practice to be in the future, and map out all the roles that are needed, the attitude, skill, and experience the role requires, and get recruiting. Now, most businesses will grow organically and people are brought on when needed without much future planning. I have a client who has actually just recently restructured on purpose. It wasn't easy, but it was possible. And the business is in a much better position, culture-wise and profitability-wise. And this particular business a few years ago actually changed. All their team were on self-employed. They went from self-employed all to employed, and they had a fairly sizable team. And this particular team now, this particular clinic has now just changed their whole front of house setup and have taken on quite a lot of technology. And so they've had two big changes in recent years, but it has actually done all the world of good for the business. So don't be fearful of doing that. And sometimes because your business has grown organically, you might end up having lots of people doing similar roles and overlaps. And it's really good to sit back and have that blank piece of paper. So when it comes to recruitment, again, a whole new topic to cover, take time to define who you need. And remember also that it's about showcasing your clinic as a great place to work. The recruitment the recruitment in this sector is really challenging. It seems to be easing a slight bit. I've noticed with several of my clients, but it's still really, really hard. There are definitely more positions than people available. So the next thing that I'm going to say maybe kind of says, oh, but if they're not enough people, how can we do this? But do try and hire for attitude and train for skill. So while it's really tempting to select a great clinical CV, if the person does not align with your culture, it's probably going to, it's not going to be long before you're tearing your hair out. Once you have your great team on board, it's important to have a consistent and positive one-to-one system in place. You really need to be able to keep your team on track and keep them engaged. You might also think about outsourcing. So there may be roles in larger practices that are more cost-effective to outsource, such as your legal and HR support. Some bigger practices have also taken on remote answering services to back up their front of house team rather than taking on an additional receptionist if their front of house team are struggling. For smaller practice owners, it's really important to regularly check how you're spending your time and weighing up if you could either be treating a patient and earning 4 times as much in an hour as you would pay someone to do a task that you're currently doing, or if you might be able to do something more valuable with your time, and therefore it makes sense to outsource things like answering the phone to a remote service, cleaning, bookkeeping. And sometimes that valuable thing that you might be doing with your time is actually relaxing and taking a break. You will just burn out if you're trying to do everything all hours of the day. So do think about, who you need around you to support you in achieving that vision. Our next very popular pillar is our profit pillar. The first thing that we advise here is to link this to your personal pillar. So what do you need and want from the practice? So we encourage our clients to do a bottom-up budget. So calculate what you'd like to take from the practice or how much profit you would like to be making, add in your taxes and expenses, and then you'll come up with the revenue required to generate that. You can then work out how much time you want to spend clinically generating the revenue, and therefore how much you need to charge, or how many other clinicians you need on board to achieve that, and what other services you might bring on board. We can't stress enough how important it is to be disciplined from the outset. For smaller clinics, you might just use an Excel spreadsheet and your practice management software systems. As you grow, using accounting software is really beneficial, And there are actually really cost-effective platforms out there that are not prohibitive for smaller practices to use straight away. We recommend as close to real time as possible in terms of where your numbers are at. And at the very least, we recommend that by the 15th of every month, you know what the performance was of the previous month. Don't be a practitioner that gathers everything up and 3 months after the financial year end, you find out if you've made a profit or loss, or you find out with a big fright how much your tax bill is. So we really encourage you to monitor your key numbers regularly. And if a particular stat is not great, ramp up your focus on it. So just talk briefly about a few numbers to monitor. So your personal needs and wants, as mentioned, keep a close monitor of what your needs and wants are, and make sure that you're taking changes into consideration. Obviously, with the recent cost of living increases, and indeed the cost of running clinics, if you've not adjusted your fees or reduced your spend, you, the practice owner, is the one that's taking the hit. We want to look at your financial performance, so we want to keep an eye on what's coming in, what's going out, and what's left. It's important to check line items of your profit and loss so that you can pick up where particular areas of your business might not be performing well or where costs are increasing. Knowing what your profit percentage is also really important. So what is a percentage profit compared to your turnover? And we want to make sure that that's not eroding. We want to look at clinician performance. So look at the performance of the individual clinicians. Here you might monitor things like number of new patients, number of returns, their patient visit average, their capacity, maybe their rate of cancellations, and separate out rate of reschedule as well, because they need to be handled differently. Income generated, and then also the percentage profit that you're making from each clinician. If a clinician is growing a particular service, for example, I've got a client whose physio is focusing on foot and ankle, we separate that out so that we can actually see how is the foot and ankle service increasing. We then want to look at clinic performance. So we want to look at all the above mentioned numbers in the perspective of the clinic and any other services that you offer. I'd also look at the capacity of the clinic as a whole, because sometimes you'll have a clinic where you've got full capacity with hands on deck. So all your clinicians are fully booked, but you've actually got space in your clinic. So you've still got room for expansion. There might be other things in the team performance that we want to monitor. So you might have other metrics, like you might have metrics around your front of house, number of calls answered, number of calls missed. Being able to monitor how many calls are being missed would then give you insight as to, do I need to bring another team member on board? Do I need to do some more training? Or indeed, do I need to outsource it to a reception? Do I need to add in a remote answering service to pick up the calls that we're missing? Because if you're starting to miss calls, you're definitely missing new patients. And then we want to look at our marketing performance. So you want to keep track of how your different marketing initiatives are performing and what your cost of acquisition of new patients is. The more accurate this is, the better it is to be able to make informed decisions. So some of it will actually come down to how that information is actually captured. So with this, rubbish in, rubbish out. So if you have a practice management software system where you've got a drop-down menu that keeps on getting added onto for all your different types of patients, and suddenly you've got 4 different things that mean the same thing, or it's so overwhelming that some people just click other, it's not good. So check how you're capturing the information about where your existing patients are coming from. Our final pillar is our plan. So this is really about bringing it all together. So in all the years that we've been working in the sector, we have definitely seen a greater chance of success when time has been taken out to put a plan in place. Obviously, when you want to attract investors, get loans, you will have a fairly substantial plan in place. We've been using our one-page plan for many years now to really capture the most important elements, keep focused, and get stuff done. Plans are not a once-in-business life activity. They need regular review and updating. and they're also not written in stone. So sometimes if a really great opportunity comes about, we need to go and look at that and say, does it fit in our plan, or is it a shiny object that we need to park? But we need to be able to be flexible in that way. So I'll go through our one-page plan summary. And behind this, we would also have a 3 to 5 year plan. We'd have a budget, we'd have a forecast, we'd have a marketing plan. But actually, the one-to-one plan is what kind of keeps our clients on track. And it's based on the Google Objectives and Key Results system. So this is very simply our one-page plan, and it just really captures the key elements. So we've got our top 3 values as to what, how we want our business to be running and how we want our team to behave, how we want our patients to perceive us. We've got at the heart of it our purpose, so why we do what we do, so getting patients better, keeping them better, getting them back to the things they love, whatever your purpose is. And then we've got a summary of our vision of where we want to take that practice. This top part of the plan really needs to inspire you. If you feel it's a bit cringy or it's kind of a little bit dull, then you need to go back to the drawing board. This part of the plan really needs to be inspirational so that it helps you to get things done. So we then define our 12-month objectives. You could do the 6-monthly or even quarterly. So our objectives might be things like practice growth. There might be something around your kind of efficiency of running your practice, that running your practice like clockwork. It could be about having an engaged or motivated team on board. And then I always encourage clients to have a personal objective, whether that's about just feeling more in balance, whether just I was speaking earlier to a client, and one of my clients had that his goal was to be really feeling relaxed and happy. And we've been working together now for 3 years, and there's a few things that he just hasn't done. They're not massively important, but he acknowledged that he was so absorbed in the feeling happy and relaxed that he was getting the other things was kind of piling up. They weren't important, but they needed to be done. So we changed it to happy, relaxed, and efficient, Chris. So we're hoping that when I see him in a month's time, he will have done some of these other bits that he's been dragging his feet on. So we have our objectives. Then we go down to defining the key results. So as an example, for an objective about practice growth, we might define the number of new patients we want through the practice, or it could be increasing your patient visit average. It could be the number of people attending a class, or bringing a new service on board, or number of referrals from consultants. The results are black and white, and you either achieve them or you don't. So I'd look at like 3 to 5 key results for each objective. And then we get down to the nitty-gritty, and we start defining the activities that you need to be taking. And so with my coaching clients, we usually do them, what activities are they going to do between coaching sessions? Some of my clients use their plan weekly, and they just update their activities on a weekly basis. And I'd also recommend using this for your team members as well. So you might have one for the practice, you might then have one for your directors, and you might then have one for your kind of lead clinicians, and then they would filter it down to having for their team members as well. So those are the kind of key areas that we really believe are necessary to really take care of in order to build a thriving practice. So I am going to now just go a little bit more into detail about the pipeline pillar in particular to start with. So the first thing we want to do is think about getting your message clear. So our phone often rings because clients want to grow their practice. Now, we don't get into the technical element of building websites or doing your SEO. We refer that out to our marketing colleague in the sector. But what we do help with is defining your message and having a plan in place. So we would really be negligent if a client called up and asked us what marketing to do without helping them get their message right. So there's several frameworks that we can use, and I just want to share 2 of them with you today. The first one is based on Simon Sinek, who I mentioned earlier when we spoke about being clear about your purpose, and he created the golden circles: why, how, and what. So he talks about what being every organization on the planet knows what they do. These are the products they sell or the services they offer. How some organizations will talk about how they what makes them special, sets them apart from the competition, and then very few organizations know why they do what they do. So generally, people go, so he talks about how really great companies market differently. So generally, people go from the outside in. So they say what they do. We offer physio, say how they might be different from other services. We offer longer treatment times, personalized hand-on care, but very rarely do they say why they do what they do. So he suggests that great companies go from the inside out. So we're here to get you better, get you back to what you love. How we do that is we provide an hour-long appointment to get to really understand what you need. We give you a personalized treatment plan, including advice and hands-on treatment. Book your physio appointment today. And just communicating those three elements in reverse makes a really massive impact, because you're talking directly to the part of the brain that makes a decision. So that's one framework that I really encourage you to really think about in terms of how you're positioning your marketing. Another really great framework is based on a book called Building a Story Brand, written by Don Miller. So this book provides a really great framework to clarify your message so that your customers will listen. And it demonstrates a really great way of how to use storytelling to captivate your audience and not confuse them. And so his whole premise is that the framework is based on a kind of universal structure behind nearly every Hollywood movie. So you have a character who wants something, encounters a problem before they can get it. At the peak of their despair, a guide steps into their lives, gives them a plan, and calls them to action. And then that action helps them avoid failure and ends in success. So going through the 7 steps, you first clearly define your character. So this is your patient. And then we want to really understand their problem. So we want to break their problem down into 3 different areas. So the external would be their injury or their condition. Their internal would be how it makes them feel. Their philosophical could be that, just debunking myths, such as if you're 80, you just have to put up with pain, or if you have backache, take a painkiller and go home. One of my clients, actually, when they were at the GP, there was a poster up there saying, if you're here with back pain, go and take an anti-inflammatory and go home. If you're pregnant, maybe you have to just it's uncomfortable, just put up with it. So there's certain society myths that we don't really need to be putting up with. So we need to we need to tell our patients that we know, that we understand that. Then our next step is really positioning ourselves as a guide. So demonstrating your expertise and empathy. One of the best ways to demonstrate expertise is by getting someone else to do that for you. So getting testimonials, getting reviews. We then need to let them know what you will do for them. So you might talk about the process of assessment, diagnosis, and treatment. And then next you call them to action. So tell them to book a call or book an appointment. And then avoiding failure is a 6th step. And here he compares this step to having a meal without any seasoning. Would be bland and you would kind of take it or leave it, but too much salt and you'd ruin it. So it's just about highlighting the consequence of not having or completing treatment and recognizing what's at stake for the patient. And then the 7th step is the most important. It's describing the success that they will have by coming to you for treatment. So a quick example going through the steps. So we love treating golfers, our character, who often come to us with back pain, their external problem. We know how frustrating this can be to miss your regular golf games, their internal problem. And you really do not have to just suffer through it, the philosophical problem. Someone in. And then you move on to establish yourself. We are the experts in treating back pain, and particularly for golfers. In fact, several of us are golfers. You're positioning it yourselves as a guide. What we do is we do a full assessment, provide a treatment plan, and once you've completed the treatment, we can also analyze your swing and give you advice to prevent injury, giving them a plan. So book your appointment now and we can get started. You're calling them to action. It's no fun sitting at home, not being able to go and play, or play in agony, avoiding the failure. Let's get you back to the golf course as quickly as possible. Results in success. So you can just use this framework to really engage with your patients. And I would use it in various different ways. So if you were if you're speaking to golfers, that was the example. If you're speaking to mums and babies, you'd have a different example. If you're speaking to an HR person that could maybe potentially get you into their offices to help them reduce absenteeism, increase productivity, that would be a different, come up with a different framework for that. So the next thing we want to then think about in terms of our pipeline journey is the patient sources. So where are we going to get them from? So I know a majority of my clients will say that they get most of their new patients through the website or Google Ads and word of mouth. Smaller established clinics will probably get a lot of word of mouth, and larger clinics might now have more of an even split between word of mouth and websites. So there'll be several places that you can get your patients from, and it's really important to monitor how many you're getting from particular sources, the value of the patients from each source, and the time and energy you're investing to acquire those patients. So a few sources to consider is obviously the personal referrals, and don't be shy for asking for those referrals. And as I said earlier, if you want to have you could have a referral scheme in place, but even just saying thank you for the referrals that you get generates more referrals. Then you might get direct patients, so through your website, Google Ads, an A board, and any other advertising that you're doing. You might get, you might belong to a business network or have businesses that you collaborate with that you can provide treatment to their staff. So do have a look at what are the big businesses around your clinic. Where could you potentially be going in and offering a service in-house, or offering, you could do a special offer for groups of employees as well. Sports, so you might have links, or you could be developing links with sports clubs. You could, you might be pitch side. You might just be able to have a poster up. You might go and do talks for sports teams. You might, attract patients from particular interest groups like mums networks or groups supporting members with particular conditions. And then you might also aspire to, getting regular referrals from other professionals, such as GPs, consultants, and other clinicians dealing with your target audience. So it's really thinking about where do you want to get your referrals and putting a plan in place to make that possible. So I've been working with one of my clients' associates recently, and she's specializing in helping vertigo. And that was one of our plans. That was one of our targets, was that she would start getting referrals from consultants and GPs. And over the time that we've been working now, it's probably around 6 months in terms of this new specialism, and she's already got 8 people that are referring really, really regularly to her, just by having put her name out there and sent them information, and when you're going to meet them and that kind of thing. So it's really important to think about what do you want to be true, and start putting a plan in place to make that happen. The next thing that we want to consider is the marketing activities that you'll engage in. So, we recommend considering the following. So obviously website, SEO, PPC, to me, it's not about do you need a website or don't you? It's actually how good is your website? Absolutely, you need to have one. So coupled with a website, there's no point having a website if no one can find you. So you need to invest in SEO. So that people, when they're searching you, they can actually find you. You might also want to consider Google campaigns or pay-per-click. So with all of this, I really recommend getting an expert to do this for you. I don't know many clinicians that are skilled in this area, and I just have seen in the past that you just end up spending tons of time trying to learn something that's so quickly evolving. So my advice is with this is, spend money, leave it to the experts, and get on with what you know how to do best. So then you make sure that you've got a Google My Business page as well, and make sure that that's up to date. Social media and other online presence is good to consider, but don't fall into the trap of spending lots of money or time with loads of posts that gain very little engagement. So really be on purpose with your social media. Really think about what is your plan, what are you going to do, how regularly are you going to do it. If when you're starting out, you might be quite quiet and you think, oh, I've got tons of time to do this. And then suddenly you're really, really busy, and then your social media falls off a cliff, and suddenly your Facebook page hasn't had a post for like 6, 7, 8 months. That's not a good look. So put a plan in place that you're able to sustain, or outsource it to someone to do for you. Keeping in touch. This is an area that I think is massively important, and I've seen great results when it's done well. So things like regular newsletters, doing appropriate recalls when patients haven't been for a while, and definitely a very robust follow-up and follow-up on cancellations. Especially when the patients are in a course of care. You might also consider things like birthday wishes, special occasions. So, New Year, Christmas, things like that. Birthday wishes was something that came up years and years ago. I was doing a talk to a group of osteopaths, and we were just discussing what kind of things do they do to keep in touch. And one lady put up her hand and she said, "Oh, I send birthday cards." And another osteopath in the room was absolutely furious by this. She said, "Oh, that is so unprofessional, and you're just bringing the whole profession into disrepute." And she was really carrying on. And I kind of said to her, "Oh, that really sounds firmly on your I will never do list." And she was kind of a bit like rustled feathers, and we just agreed that, there are 50 ways of marketing your practice. So if birthday cards isn't for you, ditch that and think of something else. Anyway, a couple of months later, she gave me a ring and she said, "I owe you this phone call." She says, "I was thinking about your really irritating I will never do list on the way home. And I had firmly put birthday cards on there." And she treated children. So she decided she'd send out cards there were 4 children that were having a birthday. And 2 of the mums actually phoned up and booked in maintenance appointments. So she kind of acknowledged that it was a really nice soft touch. It was really well received, and it was actually marketing, but in a nice way. So she's carried on doing it. So I'd also recommend having a firm plan in place in terms of developing referrals. So, just as an example I gave you about my client who's now getting regular referrals from consultants, GPs, and audiologists for her vestibular service. So there may also be other opportunities for advertising. I'd just say look into each offer that, people that approach you offering you to advertise often will be more for their benefit than for yours. Don't be my client that spent £3,000 on a billboard in a tube station and got 0 clients. And yes, it could have been the execution rather than the actual idea, but I think in that case, it was unfortunately just wasn't a good idea to do. Right. So then, as I said, we don't help you in the actual nitty-gritty of putting a website together, but we help you in your messaging and thinking about where you want to get your patients from, and also just putting a plan in place. And your plan can be as simple as this. I just feel like a lot of therapists don't become a physio or an osteochiro because they want to go into marketing. And marketing will be the first thing that will fall off your radar when you start getting busy, and then patients get better, they move away, and suddenly we need a new influx of new patients, and we put our foot on the gas again. So it is really easy if you just get into a rhythm and if you plan what you're going to be doing. So here we can just think about, maybe you have themes. So you might have themes for every single month. Maybe it's a seasonal theme, maybe it's a sporting theme. You might then think about awareness days. So which awareness days would you like to be part of that you can weave into your marketing? And then you can start plotting out what online and offline activities will you do each month. So this might be a number of social media posts or reels or videos, newsletters going out, or maybe events that you're attending or sponsoring. And then you've got a space for referrals. So think about, where do I want to get my referrals from? Who do I need to reconnect with? Who do I need to say thank you to? Really just have a good strategy in place for your referrals as well. And I'd encourage you to do this for your team members as well. So make sure that they're actively building their source of referrals as well. So then, just in summary, we want to get our message right. So you can do all the marketing in the world, but if your message isn't right, it's just not going to be heard, and especially not by the right people. And just remember that communication is on the listener's terms. So you need to get into your client's shoes. Then we want to think about all the different methods that you can use, that you're going to reach the right audience. We want to weigh up your cost, your time, and your return. Sometimes when you start out, you might look at methods that take more time, cost less, but yield a return. And when you become more established, it might be wise to engage in marketing that costs more but takes less time. Either way, it's important to get a handle on your return. And one of the most important things in marketing is consistency. So make sure that you're not confusing your audience with all over the place branding, haphazard communication, and an unclear, wishy-washy message. So I just want to kind of end, the last thing that I'm sharing with you today is just 3 book recommendations for tips on managing your time, energy, and money. Having run my mastery program for 3 years now, we recommend and discuss a book once a month. So out of, and never mind all the books from the kind of 15 years before that. So these are 3 books that stand out that I would like to share with you today. So my first one is The One Thing. So The One Thing by Gary Keller is about achieving extraordinary success by focusing on what matters most. So the key message is that to excel in any aspect of life, be it professional, personal, or both, you should identify and prioritize a single most important task or goal at any time. So he talks about how multitasking is a lie. To chase 2 rabbits at once, you will not catch either, is a quote that he uses. We lose at least 25% productivity by trying to do 2 things at once. I know that if I'm going to write my newsletter, it will take me all day if I don't turn everything else and just focus. And if I do, 2 hours and I'm done. So you can use this concept in so many ways. What is the one thing that I'll get done before the end of the year, quarter, month, week, or even what is the one thing I'll absolutely do before the end of the day or within the next 30 minutes? It's just a really great way of eliminating distractions and concentrate your energy on getting things done. The second book recommendation is, I think it's often you dedicate so much caring to others that your own well-being is often overlooked. So I just really love Rangan Chatterjee. His podcast is amazing. So if you enjoy listening to podcasts, I highly recommend his podcast. And it really is, this is a must read for those, selfless individuals. And he just talks about incorporating regular movement and enhancing sleep quality. The book acknowledges that, the demanding nature of life and offers really simple and effective solutions. So it's just a reminder that in order to take the best care of others, health professionals need to prioritize their own health as well. And then the final book that I want to recommend today is Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. So this is just a really unique practical approach to financial stability by advocating a profit first mindset. And it just really encourages you to think about profit from the start rather than treating it as an afterthought. So often businesses will kind of sell and provide all the treatments, pay all the expenses out, and then the practice owner is kind of left with what's left. So he just advocates allocating percentages of revenue to your profits, taxes, operating expenses, and owner's pay, and then just having that disciplined approach to do that regularly. It's a cash flow management book where, if you struggle, if you've been in trouble before where you've got your tax bill and it's been a bit of a surprise, then this book is absolutely for you. And it just really helps reduce stress as well. So those 3 books are kind of 3 books that I'd say I've got, as I say, I've got a full library of other books that I can recommend. Which obviously I've recommended a couple in the presentation as well. So just really to summarize, really, your 7 key elements that need to be focused in your practice, your personal, what do you personally want? What is the purpose of your practice? How are you getting, who do you want to attract in? How are you attracting them in as your pipeline pillar? You've got your patients pillar, so thinking about what do you want that patient journey to look like? How are you going to get feedback? How are you going to collect data? And then you've got your people pillar, who do you need around you? And your profit pillar, how, just making sure that you're managing the numbers, and then the plan pillar to bring it all back into place. And then we've got really getting crystal clear about your message. We've looked at exploring the best marketing methods and creating an easy to implement marketing plan. and then just taking time to think about what do you need to do to manage your time, energy, and money. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and just if there are any questions, I'd be really happy to answer them. And if you'd like to come off mute, I will check in the chat if there are any questions in the chat. No questions in the chat, but please do come off mute if you do have any questions. I'd be really happy to answer them, or comments or anything.
That's a wall of silence, Celia. I think
That
you must have answered everybody's questions. Thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation, and it certainly was very, very helpful for me, and I'm sure it was hugely helpful for if not everybody on this call. Is there any questions at all for Celia at all?
I think I've just seen Nicola ask, out of interest, which marketing team do you recommend? Michael Schumacher from HMDG does a lot of my clients' websites, so he's generally my go-to.
When he's not driving motor cars.
Yeah.
Or was.
Yes, or well. Yeah,
most engaged before brain there.
Yeah.
Just like to say thank you, Celia. That was amazing.
Pleasure.
You got like about 1 million years experience in 1 hour there. So really thank you for that.
I know it's a lot, and I think this is an overview. So just to kind of give the MSKPN members a bit of flavor for all the different areas that we can cover. I know it's a lot to absorb, and we do break these down. So I do a lot of hour sessions on each part of this. And then in my mastery program, I do 3-hour sessions on each part of this. So like we do a 3-hour session just on recruitment, and a 3-hour session just on team journey. So yeah, so today was a really big overview, and I'd be really happy to kind of break it down into smaller bite-sized chunks for whatever kind of topics people are interested in.
And I think on that, I think it's important that we promote you here, Celia, as well. And I think, it's to remind people what you are offering the MSKPN membership here, because I think you've got a huge amount of experience, and to be, to kindly offer your services and things from there, and the discount on those on your, is it monthly, fortnightly? I'm having a brain.
Kind of once or twice a month, yeah.
Yes, seminars the webinars that you run is really kind, and yeah, I'm hoping on the back of today that people will follow up with you and can create some business for you too on the back of this.
Even if it's just kind of get in touch, and if you're not ready to work with me, that's absolutely fine. But you are, if you've got specific things that you want to have a quick chat about, all the members are entitled to half an hour, and we just have a chat.
I think I saw something from Lucy come up on the chat.
Wow, how long is a piece of string? What kind of return do you expect from your marketing budget? That is so variable, and I'd expect some return. I think the thing is if we can work out what is your average spend per patient. So if on average a patient's going to spend £500, then you can start thinking, well, if I'm asked to spend that £3,000 on the billboard, then I know I need to have 6 patients at the minimum just to break even, which is not good enough really for advertising. But then you can start thinking about, what do I want that to be? So I would stand corrected, but I know some of my clients get their, like in terms of their marketing stats from HMDG as an example, they'll be able to say, well, your kind of price per new lead is maybe £17 or £14. But I think it's very relevant to think about what is your average spend, and I would break that average spend down into from different sources as well. So if you were let's say doing a whole lot of Facebook advertising, I'd want to look at, in the future, I want to look back and say, what was the average spend of that campaign? compared to the average spend of maybe people coming through my website, or maybe people coming from a talk that I've delivered, because sometimes you might find that the average spend is much lower, and therefore actually that was a more expensive campaign in the, you know, when you can look back at that. So I'm sorry I can't give you a hard and fast answer, Lucy. It so does depend, but I would absolutely just, you know, keep an eye on it. And, you know, if you can then just say, well, actually, if it's costing me 10 or 15, 20% to get that patient in, then I'm happy to do that. You know, if it starts costing you half as much as you're generating, then that's probably not worth your while. But have a look at it and you know, have a look and see what your spend is, and if you up that, you know, if you get a lot more because you're spending a bit more, then that might be worth it. But I'd you know, you could probably get maybe a more direct answer from Michael Schumacher, and I think if you look on his website, he might have actually written a piece about how much you should spend, and he broke it down into the different size clinics. So that might be a good resource to go and have a look at. I hope that helps. Just see if there's anything else. Yeah, and again, that's I think Nicola, I guess Mark would be in a good position to answer that in terms of what percentage of your turnover you should be spending. I think sometimes it needs to be higher when you're starting out, because obviously your turnover is lower and you need to invest money in marketing. So as your business becomes bigger, it's probably a smaller percentage of your overall turnover that you'll be investing. But to get going, you probably need to spend quite a bit to get those patients through the door.
Thank you. I think that's us at an hour. That was crammed,
yes.
absolutely crammed. And yes, thank you very, very, very much for your time today.
That was my absolute pleasure. And thank you again for inviting me. And I will get this recording over to you so that those that have missed it can catch up. And as someone said in the chat, they're going to be looking at it again to get the takeaways. So that's fine. And if there are any questions post this talk, then please do get in touch with me, and I'm really happy to answer them offline as well.
Thank you very much. Have
My
a lovely
pleasure.
rest of your day.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you. You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.